Hi everyone, welcome to the Thrift Stores and Coffee Shops podcast. This is your girl Ebony Cherie, also known as your coffee bartender here at Thrift Stores and Coffee Shops. If you are new, welcome. My motto here is that the door is always open, so I just wanted to pop in to greet you and to also follow through with a podcast segment that I kind of stopped because I was supposed to continue it, and I needed to jot some things down, or at least I thought I was supposed to jot some things down, and I didn't end up doing that. But I definitely feel led today to continue to talk about what I feel like God was leading me to talk about, and that was my ATL journey, moving to Atlanta. So the last video that I stopped on, which, by the way, I was saying that, you're going to have to go listen to the podcast, but I just feel like God didn't want me to do that. He wanted me to continue to talk about it here on the podcast podcast here on YouTube, which I've been posting, but I also will post these podcasts as MP3 audios on there as well. So you'll have access to both. But yeah, God was like, no, talk about it. So that's what I'm here to do. So I believe where I left off was I had my story. If you go to the video that's prior to this one, and I'll do a part 1, part 2, part 3, whatever, 4 or 5, however many videos it's going to be till I'm finished with the journey story. I had moved to Georgia, and I had, finally got there. This was 2017, so I ended up getting my own place, which was a blessing. It took about 3 weeks for me to get it. I was living with a young lady at the time who also was called to move to Georgia, and I stayed with her maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember. It's kind of where I stopped off, and then eventually I got into my own apartment. I started off in Smyrna. Smyrna is a really cool little city in Georgia. I ain't gonna call it Atlanta. It's Cobb County. It's not Fulton County. Crazy. Sorry, the blood of Jesus. Gotta keep pleading the blood. There's a lot going on out here in 2024. I started off in Smyrna. That's where Julia Roberts is from. If you want to know anything about Smyrna, Georgia. Nice little city, Cobb County. Not even really, I don't even say it's 10 minutes from Marietta, but I guess Marietta is like very, very extremely close, so you can drive to Marietta through Smyrna. You can get to Atlanta, highways all over there, all of the things. It was a really neat city. I didn't know where I was going to live, and so the young lady I was living with literally lived around the corner from the apartment that I got, and I actually liked my first apartment, so that was it. And so 2017, it turned into 2018. I ended up working. I was substitute teaching, which I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I ended up going to school for marketing, but of course, they don't judge you based on what bachelor's degree you have. Although, when you want to go and literally teach, you need your certification, all the things. I just realized after 7 months of being contracted with them that that's not what I wanted to do. It didn't pay enough. The stress level was too high, and I was already going through some traumatic experiences, and I did not have the full healing that I needed in order to teach children. Although I feel like I'm fairly good with children, it just wasn't the place that God wanted me for the long haul. I also had another job, so I was kind of working 2 jobs at the same time. Yeah. So that was kind of like starting off, and then 2017 rolled into 2018. And during the months of, I would say, when I kind of got out of the April of 2018, I really felt like I was just really experiencing a lot of hurt coming up out of my heart. I was having some issues with a friend, and I was just going through a lot, and I was affecting her, and just the amount of just stuff that I was experiencing. I knew God wanted me to go to a certain ministry, even through all of that, and I had dreams prior about the pastors that I talked about in the previous one. That's the ministry that the Lord told me to go to. I felt led to go there anyway, and I knew I wasn't going to be there long because I had a dream regarding that ministry, and the Lord was taking me from that ministry to another ministry, which is where I wanted to initially be, the ministry that I ended up at. So if that makes sense. So I started off at one place because God had me there because he wanted me to see things and have a dream about things and kind of seeing and discerning what's happening, although God was even speaking still at that ministry, although that ministry is no longer, it is there, but the founders of the ministry are no longer over that particular ministry, if that makes sense. But God, sometimes he uses us to go to different places in order to see things. It doesn't mean you'll stay long. It just means you're there to, maybe God has a word for somebody. Maybe he wanted you to connect with certain people. And that's what I felt like God wanted me to do, to connect with people that were there. It kind of was a catapult to me to get to Georgia. That ministry, honestly. God was, but me being obedient and following him got me there. But also that ministry was kind of a seed to kind of help plan, because when I went to the single ministry event prior to that, the year before 2018 hit, even the pastor was preaching about Jonah and making sure you're going when God tells you. And I mean, everything about that just moment was just, okay, God, I hear you. That was even confirmation then with her speaking about Jonah. So I'm like, okay, God just really using this person to tell me you going to Georgia, even if he ain't gonna be there very long. So that's kind of what happened. So back to 2018, I was going through a lot. April and May were very hard months for me in 2018 because I was borderline suicidal. I didn't really talk about that very much. I briefly talked about it in the book that I wrote, but it was a lot. And I was going through a lot of pain, and I was giving up on myself. I wanted to give up on life. And I could just remember reaching out to a mentor at the time who, before I moved, she was my counselor, but because of the state laws, she had to be more so of a conduit, liaison kind of, because she couldn't technically counsel me. I had to have a counselor in Georgia. Eventually I did connect with someone, and then a lady from the church that I was previously going to, she was a counselor, so it was nice to sit down and just chat with her. This was after all of that happened though. But I'll never forget when I was going through all of that, it seemed so quick that God turned it around for me. But when I was going through it, it felt so heavy. I was so heavy. I literally remember having a vision of me on the bed, and I felt like the devil, Satan, something dark came and snatched something from me. And it felt like I was shaking in my bed. I'll never forget this. I could start crying thinking about it, but God is so faithful that he restored me even in that moment. Like, I just felt like I lost something so dear that I needed, and it felt like I was done for, but God. So I reached out to my mentor / counselor at the time, and I was like, I'm going through it. I don't know if I'm going to live. I'm really having a hard time. And she didn't realize how hard of a time I was having. So she called me immediately. She was like, I got your email. You need to do this, that, and the third. Like, she was kind of walking me through the steps. I tried taking some medication. I threw that stuff out because I started hallucinating. I ended up getting another job because like I told you, I was done for with that teaching. It wasn't for me, but I love babies and I love children. It just wasn't. I was going through what I was going through. I didn't need to be stressed out, and I didn't need to be working with no kids at that time. Not trying to be a substitute. That wasn't going to be happening. So the Lord really just had to work with me in that, and I was just having just this. It's just horrible. Like, just don't. People, if you're going through that, just know that God will be with you. But always reach out to somebody if you're ever having those kind of traumatic experiences and not wanting to live anymore. Because I just was done. I was just like, you know what? I hate it here. I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. Why would you tell me, God, to come here? And I feel like I'm not progressing. I just feel like I have these college degrees. I keep applying for all these jobs. I'm not getting anywhere. It's just like it was a heavy spirit of oppression in Georgia, over me. And plus I was going through all this stuff internally. I just felt like there was no way out. And I just know God was in all of it, regardless of what I was going through. And so when I finally came through that part of my journey, I remember I threw those pills out, and I was just like, nah, I ain't doing that. And I remember I went to the hospital, before then I was still moving around. I had great friends at the time. The friends that I didn't have, God restored. The ones that were just, I felt like were fizzling out, friends that I have been friends with for years from college and all. It was just not, yeah, those friendships were just from Washington and Oregon, and then God restored me with new friends in Georgia who were there for me through all of that. I went to the hospital, but I ended up going to Ross. I remember going to Ross and getting this little brown book, and it was like the Journey with Jesus, Walking with Jesus book, and I just picked that book up, and that's the book that I would read, and I would read The Battlefield of Mind. Shout out to my girl T. Wiley for sending me that book during that time, and she and I weren't even like super close at that time, but she knew what I was going through, and she had already studied. She had studied at seminary and all types of things prior to that, so she kind of understood people, and I think she went for counseling and all of that. But I think I still have her book. By the way, I've been meaning to send that back to you. But she was there. She sent me a book. My girl Lauren sent me a book too. She knew what I was going through. It was almost like people still needed to give me my space because I was under a heavy demonic attack. Like, that's what I'm saying when people are gray. But even people told me, like, Ebony, I was being attacked when I was praying for you. Like, the devil tried to have me. Now, God only allowed so much because he was like, nah, you ain't gonna take my daughter out. It was almost like I wanted to die, but I didn't want to. Does that make sense? So I ended up going to the hospital, and sorry to be sidetracked, but I gotta give a shout out to people that were there for me. I can name everybody, but I went to the hospital because I just couldn't sleep. I was hallucinating. Remember I told you I took some pills, and I was just like, these ain't it. I threw them out because I don't like taking medicine anyway. I'm a natural Lisa. I just needed to stop feeling the way that I was. And people that are on antidepressants, if you need to take them, they were not for Ebony. Prayer worked, and me going to the hospital and needing to get sleep. And so they ended up taking me I checked into the emergency, but then they was like, oh, you're on S-Watch. Girl, you got to go to the backpack. And this was a hospital that I didn't like. And I had to go there prior because I wasn't feeling well before. But now I was going to this hospital because of this. And I just was like, I just already don't like this hospital. But it's the closest one. It was in, I think it was Marietta, Kennewick area. And I was just like, I just can't. I don't like this hospital. But being that I was going through what I was going through, I was the peaceful one in the room because I had my little book, Walking with Jesus. And I was reading that book. I was sitting there. I knew I was a little like apprehensive. I was feeling some type of way because I just didn't want to fall asleep there in that kind of environment. But because there was one girl that had to be handcuffed while I was there, and I was like, yeah, they had to cuff her because she was. But you know when you could be under attack, but you still have a peace of God, and then some other people they're dealing with their own demons, and them demons is actually activating. What's the difference between me and her? We were like night and day. I was like, I'm not doing all that. I just need to sleep. She just is going off, and I can't sleep right now, but I ended up going to sleep. And I'll never forget, my girl picked me up, and then another friend of mine, I was able to like sleep at her house and her apartment or whatever. It just was peaceful. I just needed rest, like after going through that, you're trying to fight, but you're like, I can't fight alone. I need people. And I knew I had my prayer warriors, and my uncle, who was a pastor, was praying for me. He would reach out to me, and it was just, God was there. And I was having a hard time. I had to reach out to people because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I need you guys to pray for me. Like, I'm really under heavy attack. So that was like end of May. I started to kind of get my restoration back, end of 2018. And God is so faithful, you guys. I just had to tell it because it was just thinking about it. I remember just doing a video and posting it on Instagram, and I just don't even remember how how did I even post that video when I was struggling and I was singing and I was, oh God, I had shades on. I don't have that video up there no more. The page from that season is down, but I was just like, I was really struggling. I don't even recognize myself. If I thought about that video, I'm like, I wouldn't even recognize myself. But that was not the Ebony that I am now. Trust me, I was very, very, it was a heaviness on me. But God is faithful. He will not put more on you that you can bear. However, he will allow for you to go through things so that later you can talk about it, so that you guys can be blessed by it. So heavy season, end of May, God brought me through that. I ended up getting a job working at a retailer, and that's when I ended up getting my car, because I'm like, I'm not catching the bus from Smyrna all the way to the Perimeter Mall. You got me messed up. So I ended up qualifying, getting a car, and I knew I wanted to make additional finances. So I was like, as soon as I get this car, I'm going to drive for Lyft. And driving for Lyft actually paid off that car. Praise the Lord! Can we say hello? And I learned Georgia by driving for Lyft, and I met some amazing people. It kind of helped to, finance a lot of the things that I needed to do. I ended up going to real estate school down there. I'm not licensed in Georgia yet, but I am licensed in Washington. My plan is to transfer licensure over there to Georgia as well, because our hours cover it. So God was faithful, even though I didn't technically get licensed there. I finished school, but during the pandemic, I ended up moving back. But anyway, so God is faithful. I started the new journey and journey with Jesus, and I ended up going to Savannah with a friend during that time, just kind of like the end of that part of my journey. And then I ended up being able to go to Miami too, with my cousin, who since has passed away, but she was there for me as well. It's just God kind of helped me to get that vacation, like sleep and peace, even though I went through all of that, kind of like ironed out all the kinks, and I'm just thankful. Make sure you have a tribe. It's why it's so important to have believers and have connection with a church. At the time, I think I did not feel the church connection, because I was at this church that I was telling you that God led me to go to. But even when I had started at the church that I ended up at for the last duration of my time in Georgia, at the beginning I didn't feel that connection, and I was going through so much that I just needed somebody to be kind of like, hey, Ebony, I see you. And I didn't feel that. So if you are somebody that's struggling with being at church and going through church and having those type of thoughts and wanting to leave the world, because look at where we're at, the state of being, I would encourage you to tap into a community. If the church is not it, forget it. Like, find somewhere where there's Jesus people who love on you. You can go to a place where they just serve food once a month, a home group or something. There is community for you. It was there for me. I wasn't even, though I didn't feel like it was ultimately the church, I found that when I did start going more frequently at the church that I ended up at. It just took a little bit more time. It took a little bit more patience and connection. Just restoring hope, restoring friendships, renovating old to new, just me, and just making sure that I had what I needed while I was there. I grew so much spiritually there. I felt like I lost a lot, even though I grieved friendships that I no longer had. Like, it was hard letting go of people while I was in Georgia. I had to release people from my life. But God blessed me with new friendships. I'm still friends with those friends today that God blessed me with while I was in Georgia. It's kind of like God will show you in seasons when people are over, and you will know who are really there for you when you go through something like that. And that's what I learned. Like, two of my friends I didn't feel like were present, who I was friends with for years. And I was just like, for you to even not even be even considering the things that I'm going through, not to just be like, oh, I'm selfish because maybe I did something I shouldn't have did, but I just felt like this is a season where you're all about you too. I understand I hurt you or whatever the case may be, and no shade to her or them, but it's just like, now I get to see who are my true friends. Those seasons with you are over. So I can forgive you and move on. But thank you for letting me know who you truly are in this season of my life, which means you're no longer needed in this season. 10 years ago, we were cool. We had all of that. But it's like, we're done, and I'm thankful for that season. But you got to know that I had to be the type of person and friend to realize that I'm not here to ride out life with you. I always thought that because I was loyal. I was like, okay, whatever we're going through. But I also, even in that, learned to be a better friend, because I learned where I was cutting up and where my trauma was affecting other people and women. And I just had to be honest with myself. Well, Ebony, you're not perfect. You need to stop this. You need to stop that. Whatever is causing this pain in this person's life, you're maybe inconsiderate here. You're a little selfish here. You're a little backbiting here or manipulating, whatever. You needed, like, God checked that in you. And so I own me. But I realized when you're in a darkness like that, you need people. Even if they say, hey, I feel like the enemy's trying to do something, but I'm going to cover you. Just say you're there. I remember who was there because they reached out to me. People that I weren't even close to like that were reaching back out to me because I was in such need. So I understand what church means, and I understand what friendships means and family means. I know my mom, of course. I don't know if she knew the severity of everything, but of course my mother is always praying for me. So her prayers have always gone before me, before I even came into this world. So I know her prayers were covering me. But it's just a matter of who's there and who's not. You will always remember who was there for you when you went through a very hard time. I know a lot of us have lost people I've been losing people since I was 6 years old. So it's nothing new. But you realize who's there for you, not when just the funeral is there. That's the thing. When the funeral is over, that's when it matters most. I think we all know that. I used to reach out to people after. I was like, I'm going to give them some time so that they know that I've been thinking about them. I'm going to send them a card. I'm going to send them this, maybe a gift card for food, just let them know, hey, I'm thinking of you. I know you lost your person, because I know what it was like to lose people in my life and how empty it felt after they were gone. The void that you feel. You got to reach out to people after the fact. Just note to self, to people, and to you. Make sure you're reaching out to people after their family have passed. If we know a lot of people that have lost loved ones during COVID, check on that wife that lost her husband. Check on sister so-and-so. Check on your brother who lost his child. Hey brother, how are you doing? I just wanted to check in to see how your heart is regarding that situation. If you feel like he's not ready to talk about it, respect that. Give him his time and his space. But just know that they want you to check in, because that person is never going to be forgotten. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm finally whole when it comes to my father. Like, I was 6 years old when he died, but I didn't start going to counseling until I was like 30. So I had to work through all that childhood stuff prior to that. That's like, how many years? You do the math. 30 minus 6. So how many years is that? And going through a loss is a traumatic experience, especially when sometimes it's traumatic because how the person died. It's just traumatic because a child losing a parent that early and then seeing somebody that you love dearly and you don't know why they're laying there, it's really weird. You got to be able to put all that together. That's just part of my story. I don't know about your story. Some people have lost their parents through COVID, grandpa, grandma. That's still hard for people because some of grandparents have raised their grandchildren. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a lot. And I think being present, it's not enough to see a post on Instagram. You know what I mean? Yeah, that can enlighten me, but I need somebody who's actually going to be there for me. And me, one of my biggest love languages are quality time. So I just need to make sure that somebody's going to be present in the moment or just reaching out to me. And I'm the type of person, if you know me, you know me. You know Ebony's always going to check in with you. If I think about somebody, I'm checking in right away because that's the Holy Spirit dropping it in my spirit. Check in with somebody. Check in with so-and-so. I don't know what she's going through. She may not even explain to me what she's dealing with, but I know I need to check in with this person. That's just the person that I am because I have the Holy Spirit. And so when he's prepping me to do something, do it because you never know. Or if I'm feeling something about somebody, I'm going to pray. We need to be just a little bit more in tune and have more discernment about people, because one thing we're going to take with us when we leave this world is our relationships. And God's going to ask us what we did with what he gave us. And with our giftings, we're going to be blessing other people. That's what we're here for. We're not just here for us. I mean, I'm just saying, no shade to anybody. And I hope this doesn't come off any type of way to people that have been in my life and no longer are there. But the truth is the truth. You got to be honest, right? And the truth hurts. I wasn't the greatest person in people's lives, but I know I tried. At least I was present, Anyway, no shade. But yeah, that's that portion of Georgia. But God really just surrounded me with the right community. I felt like Georgia is a dream for a lot of people that have a plan. I didn't really have a plan. I kind of just went with the flow. I had several different jobs, but I learned a lot being down there, and I grew spiritually. I think having a faithful community and also being a server down there is important. Starting a business is very important. I had several businesses. Lyft was one, and I also had an Etsy shop, and I was, doing my little thing in my little Etsy shop. I'm a visually creative person, so I like to do things visually as well. But and I did have my own suite down there. It didn't last very long because I was always trying to keep up with work and everything. But God is faithful. He'll show you what you need to do. You try different things. I'm not the type of person to always believe in one one thing, you should do one thing for the rest of your life, because we have many facets, we have many gifts. You know, you might have worked as a secretary for 20 years of your life, but all of a sudden now you want to go into interior designing. You can do that. Like, if you have that gift, you want to start a business, that's okay. I never was succumbing to the type of, you know, place where people always just like, well, you got too many holes in your resume. I don't know anybody that's had a job for 50 years. I personally ain't the type to work at a place for that long. I just can't. I get bored quick, and I'm a visual person. So you got to keep me creative. I got to keep my creative juices, or I'm like, you know, like I've done hair, I've done makeup. I started doing makeup before I started doing hair, real estate, you know, just, you can do it all if you want to, just not at all one time, you know? So, you know, Georgia is a dream place for people that want to go there. But one thing I will encourage you to do, if you feel led to leave or go down there or even just visit, is pray before you go, and make sure you have covering, because it has a lot of spiritual things down there that you may not be ready for. Like, I wasn't ready spiritually, but God protected me in that. But I grew spiritually while I was there, so I learned to get ready for places like Georgia. I'm used to being home in Washington because I know these demons up here, and they're kind of calm. You know, they're calm demons up here, not all the time. But I'm just saying, Georgia is very busy. You know, we've got spirit of homosexuality, that's huge. Idolatry is huge. Really huge down there, like huge. Like, you know, vanity, just a lot. Oppressive spirits, racism. You know, you really have a lot that you're dealing with there. So you have to know what you're dealing with before you move anywhere. Because there's one thing to be a natural person and, you know the economy, and okay, you got to get a better job, and you got to have a lot of money before you go down there and save, because you're not going to work a job that's going to pay you as much as Washington. You know, you think about all of those physical, not logical things. But then the spiritual part, you have to know where you're going. If you're called to move to New York, because some people are, know what demons are there, know what principalities you're dealing with there. California, same thing. I tip my hat to anybody that's living in California right now. You must be doing quite all right, because the good Lord's keeping you, because there's a lot of spiritual stuff going on right now. Now, Georgia has great things. One thing I loved about it is the camaraderie, the connections, the free events, people like me that look beautiful and that are just very, you know, connective, want to connect with you and stuff like that are genuine. But also you got to watch out for the people that are not. That's everywhere. And so there's going to be more coming from this story about the spiritual aspect. But thanks for watching, listening, and tune in to Thrift Stores and Coffee Shops on Spotify and Apple. Bye.